And just like that, it works. The magic works. I love it when the magic works. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Teresa Mitchell,
I'm Honey.
and this is called This Is Now a Bridge to a Better World. And we'd like to talk about what's going on and what sort of attitude we can bring and what sort of efforts we can bring to maybe making a better world. So, shall I just
Launch right
launch into
in.
it?
Yes.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Well, the whole reason Ford pardoned Nixon was because it was understood that no one was above the law. And as you may recall, Nixon was facing trial and impeachment for burgling the Watergate Democratic campaign office. And why did he do that? He did that because he wanted to cheat using his office to make the
Excuse me.
Democrat candidates look bad. And the so it's settled law. And Ford was, waiting for his chance once Nixon put him in, and there was this whole discussion as to whether that was even appropriate, that a president should be chosen by another president who was under Damocles' sword in terms of impeachment. And Nixon wanted to avoid impeachment too. So in 74, yeah, he all that went down, and Ford just immediately got on the horn and said he was offering a pardon to President Nixon for all that he had done in attempting to make sure that he stayed in office. So the loaded right-leaning Supreme Court is fooling no one by pretending that the law isn't settled on whether the presidency grants permanent immunity to its office holders. And when I say it's loaded, I'm thinking particularly of Clarence Thomas, whose wife was involved in the January 6th attempt to deny the will of the American voters and to hold Trump in office. But there's other justices, as you know, who were put in under the pretense that they would not destroy abortion. They were lying. They were put in with Mitch McConnell's machinations. Mitch McConnell saying that he is going to step down, and everyone breathing a sigh of relief. So that's what we're looking at when the Supreme Court says that they'll just have a look and see whether the question can be decided. They're looking at a question that isn't a question. It's something that's already decided. So U.S. v. Nixon decided that issue in 74, and SCOTUS is now delayed responding, for 2 weeks, during which time they were doing nothing. And now they're adding another 7 weeks. So they're totaling 9 weeks of delay, a beautiful gift to Trump, who wants to delay things until he can try again to steal the presidency. I mean, if you look at what's really cooking up and all the tricks that they have pulled and intend to pull and say that they're going to pull, it's going to be another attempt to steal the presidency.
And Trump's lawyer actually did. She gave an interview wherein she used the words, she thinks that the Supreme Court is going to come through for him. As if, there's been a little favor for Kavanaugh, who she named by name. Kavanaugh by name, she named him. Who Trump, as she pointed out, gave his all to get seated on that Supreme Court. So she's pretty sure he'll come through for Trump, as if this is some sort of sports game, as if this is some sort of, legitimate action that when, somebody scratches your back, you're going to turn around and scratch theirs, even in issues of constitutional law. That is just an unthinkable claim by Trump's lawyer, and yet that went unchallenged by the interviewer, because that is the state of politics writ large that the American mainstream, especially the right wing of the mainstream media, puts out there.
That is the same lawyer that has been repeatedly reprimanded by the judge, called out for not understanding basic trial law, and that's the one that spent much of her time pouting before the cameras and making sure her lips were adjusted just so, because apparently she wants a modeling career after all of this.
I'm just thinking that really her biggest claim to Trump's loyalty is that she looks a whole lot like his wife.
Yes,
I don't know.
Looks like his preference, and
I'm just saying
it's clear. Well, I was going to say it's clear that she also doesn't understand civics. That the whole idea of the Supreme Court is that it's part of the triad of separated powers, and that of course they're not supposed to be showing any loyalty to the president and or Congress that appointed them. They're supposed to be completely separate from that, and not just as a matter of attitude, but by intent in law, and they're supposed to be the experts on law. So this is what we're facing, is a corruption of the intention, the basic intentions of government.
And we're talking, of course, about Alina Habba.
Alina Habba, yep.
Okay, carry on.
Well, so that situation is, I suppose many people are looking at that and wondering just how far we have gone to the right. And I think we've gone a tremendous amount to the right. I mean, when you consider that the states are being allowed to essentially scoff at their position under federal supremacy. For example, the state of Texas has been pushing back federal troops, claiming that only they have the right to address the border with Texas and Mexico. Now, this is just grossly wrong. Again, this is a matter of civics. That is a federal border. It requires federal enforcement where there is enforcement, and state considerations are secondary. So we have Governor Abbott, who is also known for literally attacking the other states by sending groups of confused migrants into New York and into other cities that he knows that his constituents will consider immoral urban pools. Abbott is saying that because the federal government has not kept its compact with the states, that he can just give up and do what he wants. Now, this is exactly what the Confederate States said just before the war broke out. So we're talking about an uncivil war that's already in progress. And we have Biden hoping for re-election. And the way that he's hoping for re-election is getting some of the MAGA crowd to vote for him, which is just absurd. I mean, I should rephrase that. He's not even doing that. I think even Biden realizes that no MAGA will vote for him because they are too far gone. Their idea of him is utterly absurd. But he wants Republicans to vote for him. I don't know if that'll work either, because the lies of the MAGA crowd tend to seep into the population at large. And we were talking last night.
Before we move on, can I just say that yesterday there was a ruling. The federal judge blocked a blatantly unconstitutional Texas border law, and this has been put out in a press release from the ACLU. And it's been noted then that migrant rights advocates cheered a U.S. judge's decision to temporarily block a looming Texas law that critics argue is federally unconstitutional, even though the state's Republican attorney general has already filed an appeal. So basically, the U.S. District Judge of the Western District of Texas, Judge David Ezra, granted the preliminary injunction to prevent the enforcement of Senate Bill 4, which would empower local and state authorities to arrest and deport undocumented immigrants. Republican Texas governor signed the law in December, and along with Senate Bill 3 in Texas, allocated over $1.5 billion for border security measures. So this is a major win, according to the ACLU, for the U.S. Constitution and for human rights in this country. So I just, there was a little legislative win yesterday. So let's see how far that goes.
And the
always
courts,
like to point out the little light somewhere flickering in the tunnel.
Right. Well, and the courts have been slapping back Texas, which is again saying that they don't have to obey anymore. And Arizona is considering a law that would allow the vast estate owners on the Arizona border to shoot people coming across the border just because they're immigrants. I mean, the logic is very twisted, so I won't repeat it here. But that's what they're trying to do is pass a murder law against immigrants. And so Biden has gone down to the border, and I suppose Biden has little choice but to counter Trump's border stunt, since the Republicans have succeeded in getting Americans to talking about immigration as if it were a bad thing, instead of talking about the real problems that we have, which is the grotesque aggregation of power and wealth in the hands of the billionaires. But the way Biden's doing it and his message show that the Democrat ratchet is still oiled and cranking merrily, and it's moving that Overton window, that window of what is acceptable, and the way that we look at things, the way that we frame things, has been shoved way the hell over to the right. And as Ani was saying, the goalposts that we have to score on have also been moved. We'll be back to that in a minute. Biden's trying to say that he's already dealing with the border, already trying to deal with the border, but of course, and it's true, the Republican-dominated House of Representatives with Trump in their ears, hoping to get reelected on an upsetting issue, won't let him. And it doesn't matter how reasonable he sounds, because the issue to the idiot Trumpers is that he's a communist lizard man from the planet Hellfire, transing their kids with Pizzagate pizzas, and it doesn't matter what he says.
Because he lives on adrenochrome.
He lives on adrenochrome. That's how he got so old. And Biden's border compromise is a compromise of rational and moral thought, and they don't care about that.
As a B movie, I think I've already seen this.
It needs to be done.
And but as reality, no, know the difference between a bad B movie plot and reality.
I just said it would be in the Iron Sky universe. Anyway, the fact is, we need the immigrants doing the moral thing and taking in people who are driven here by our climate change, our beloved and tax subsidized oil companies' climate change, and our bloody contra wars. That's the moral thing. But it's also the fiscally smart thing. And the Congressional Budget Office, and Chris Hayes mentioned this is where I found this, but it's true. I looked up a link. The Congressional Budget Office estimated that immigration brings $7 trillion worth of labor productivity to the USA. But, it can't happen if they're not allowed in. Latin America's loss is moving by foot up a trail, on trains, across the Darien Gap, horribly and often deadly, strenuous journey.
I want to point out just for a moment, as you were saying, it's just not right. It's not American. It's not right. It's not right by our own nation's history to be anti-immigrant. I mean, it's the height of hypocrisy, because if you were not enslaved or a original inhabitant on this land, then you got here because of immigration, or your ancestors did. And so I just want to point out that there's this Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor. We have it a lot in sort of patriotic pictures. I kind of grew up with this image, and there's a poem inscribed on the bottom of it, right? And I remember in grade school, we all had to sing this. I won't sing it this morning, but I just want to remind people that there's a statue in New York Harbor that says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shores send these, the homeless, tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door."
P.S. Just kidding, lol.
Yeah, right. That was then. This is now. MAGA forever. I mean, I just want to say these were values that were mainstream enough to be put on a national gift from France that stood for what we considered American values at that time. How far to the right are we? And I get that there has always been issues with immigration, right? I get that 120 years ago, no Irish need apply, no Italians need apply, that there were these discriminatory laws that have been pushed back on. And it is really time to stand together. And this is kind of near and dear to my heart in so many ways, not only as somebody who was born in this country and raised with that poem as writ large for our American values. I didn't use that phrase right, but you know what I mean? But also, I was raised by immigrants who got here after World War II from England. How did they get here? Well, because one of the American sailors stationed in England knocked up somebody that was going to become my aunt in the future. And hence, the family moved to America one by one. And one of the siblings in that family was blind And he got held up and actually was held at Ellis Island for a couple of months while the country decided whether they were going to let in a blind guy from England. There was a state congressman or a state senator actually at the time that got involved in that, and eventually he was released and allowed to join the rest of his family. And these are the stories I grew up with. You know, maybe you are a first or second generation immigrant yourself, and you know the history of your family and the hardships that people endured to get here, whether you know from where at whatever part of the world you came. The immigrant story is hard, and I get it. The English immigrant story is probably the easiest of all, you know. And so let's look at humanity. Let's look at compassion, and let's look at not being a country of freaking hypocrites. You know, I think that we cannot apologize our way out of the immigrant situation and out of this manufactured border crisis. I think we have to stand tall and say, right, we accept people from around the world looking for opportunity and a better life, especially in light of the climate crisis that the US has been a huge driver of, especially in light of the failed Contra wars and the terrible war on drugs that really has done very little to stop drugs, but a whole lot to continue oppression in so many ways. I'll step back now. Carry
Well,
on,
I think particularly
Teresa.
since the Reagan years, we've taken that poison into our system. That Overton window has shifted so far to the right that we are habitually cruel to ourselves. I mean, it is cruelty. The idea that we have so much money, we have so many trillions in reserve. Actually, even the Pentagon just has $1 trillion sitting in reserves, according to the people who attempted to audit it, and that money is kept away from us, but also from the society generally, so that we have this idea that somehow we have this virtuous cruelty. We're going to apply virtuous cruelty to the population, to the people who right now are living on a sidewalk in the cold. It's never worked. It is cruelty. It's degrading everyone's experience of life. It's absolute stupidity, and I would wake people up from it if I possibly could. I mean, the purpose of our living in this society is to live in a better society. It's not to be moral taskmasters who have a whip to crack against people and drive them out into misery so that they all become these, you know, amazingly Stakhanov virtuous workers. That's such bullshit, and we need to call everyone on it all the time until it goes away, because we've been trained to see it now. I mean, we've been trained not to see it. And so that brings me to
thank you for that. That was yes, I concur.
Well, we were talking last night for the need for a sort of broad coalition left march that we remember. I remember attending one in DC in 1987 when nearly 1 million people, and I was there, and I don't care what the New York Times said. The numbers were, I mean, other people, the Park Service did the numbers, and there was just a gigantic number of people, in DC from all over the nation. I think it was April, and we protested the Contra War, whose turmoil is still seen today in the refugees heading north, but also we protested underground nuclear testing. We protested the excessive amount of money going into the Pentagon. Back then it was $600 toilet seats. Be lucky to get them for $600 now. Gay and lesbian rights, as we used to call it, since trans was out of the question, and that's a whole nother story. Equal pay for women, regulatory capture and corruption, a number of issues. No one thought we were going to have to fight Roe v. Wade all over again, but we came together to oppose Reaganism, and we need to come together again. And part of that is, as I said, seeing, you know, our moral failure again, seeing how far we've been shoved to the right by the Reagan counter-revolution.
Absolutely. I want to just pause for a moment and say you are watching. This is now Bridge to a Better World. I'm Ani. I'm with Teresa, and we do this every Friday morning at 9 o'clock, or almost every Friday morning at 9 o'clock. So you're watching right now. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. thanks for joining us
Yeah,
as
good morning.
always.
Well, we got a comment. Can you read it?
There's a lot of comments. Yes, but yes, that last one says, in fact, Jabara, who joins us this morning, says, my grandfather came from Poland when the kids were young. He never told the kids where they came from because of Polish jokes, right?
Oh, yeah.
And again, this is so true with so many folks who came from countries that were a little, yeah, on the downside of popular culture. um, Definitely folks immigrating from Poland. I've heard that story from other friends as well. Certainly people have hid but, some of their Jewish heritage, some of their Italian heritage, again depending on exactly when your country immigrated. uh, Many names were anglicized, and we just all wanted to jump on in to that melting pot where everyone became a sort of beige homogeneity, as opposed to celebrating the really brilliant ethnicities that we come from, that
Which
the
which
great diversity of life.
yeah, which leads to the lie of whiteness. It's good to know where you came from. I'm an Irish Jewish. I'm an Irish German Jew Scot, and you have to say it that way with a snap at the end. Irish
Do
German
you?
Jew Scot.
I can't snap my fingers anymore because of arthritis. What is that?
And you could crack your knuckle.
Yeah, I can't really though, is the problem. Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty much English right around, with a little Irish and Scottish mixed in for good measure, both by uh, what, biology and by adoption. So there's all that. Carry on, will you?
That was the extent of
Oh,
my
okay.
comments prepared for this morning. Thank you for
Um,
listening.
Yeah, we have. I just wanted to say a couple more things about that coalition building.
Yeah.
Um, we have wonderful uh, common goals, right? And we can argue a lot about the details. And the thing that I've noticed is, and I think other people have noticed this too, right? I think that when we have somebody so odious as Trump in the White House, we have a much easier time creating broad-based coalitions because I think everyone is kind of like, oh shit, right? I remember when I was 14, um, older friends were like, "Oh, it's okay that Reagan got elected because it's going to be such a sharp shock to the American conscience. His far right, theocratic
I
leanings
remember
are
that.
going to be such a shock to the American conscience that the left will finally be able to move ahead and get all of these goals met, because, well, such opposition we'll have never seen before."
Well, well, broadly, I mean, that comes from Nach Hitler uns, which turned out to be true, but not in the way anyone was saying it. It was true after the world was in a smoking ruin. Sure, yeah, Hitler went down.
So, right. And I remember hearing that again under Little Boots. You're right. And we all came together and there were like thousands of people in the street talking about peace, talking about the peace dividend. And, eh, and then it goes away because, well, we burn out if we don't strategize for the long haul. And we really have to uh, uh, not just come together when somebody absolutely direly awful gets into the White House. That coalition building needs to continue, even through Democratic administrations, because near as I can figure, they do dumb shit things too. And I'm going to point out an example of Biden's White House asking for um, uh, not sunsetting a right to spy on American citizens provision, and the fact that he's asked for an extension for another year in face of even mainstream Democratic opposition from like Zoe Lofgren and Ron Wyden. These are not the far left radical progressive fringe. This is not the squad talking. This is Ron Wyden. We know him, right? He's a pretty centrist, liberal-ish Democrat that's been in Congress, that's been in legislature now for decades, and he is leading the call against the Biden White House for just trying to continue this spying clause, ability to spy. Why do we need that? Why do we need the ability to spy on American citizens? It seems kind of against the Constitution. And if it's going to be okay for Biden to do it, guess what? It's going to be okay for Trump to do it. Should he, God forbid, get back into the White House? So, I mean, this is certainly time to clean up those laws, right? We don't know what happens in the future, but we know what's happening right now. We should not have any dictatorial powers going to the presidency, period. It doesn't matter which team is sitting in the chair. All right. So, broad-based coalition now, yes, please, now more than ever. And then let's keep it going no matter what happens until we actually have a peace dividend, until we actually have human rights commonly spoken about around the dinner table, until we actually have social supports that we need, until we actually manage to get some action, real action going on climate change. Thanks. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk. I'll just slip quietly into the background again.
Except that it would be nice to do the tarot.
Oh, okay. So you really are quite the okay. In that case, let me shift to the tarot portion of the show. Let's just go ahead and say right now we have started Women's History Month. I guess that's the other thing I just want to say. We have started Women's History Month. I hear a rumor that next Friday at some time, I will be doing a show with Lisa Loving on KBOO Community Radio around the state of women in this sort of move towards the theocracy that would be the Republic of New Gilead that seems to be sprouting right around us. So we will be having a show, I'm not sure the time, on KBOO next week, and I'll be sure to put out some kind of announcements around that. We'll post an announcement on this channel, for example, when I find out a little bit more information. That also said, then next Friday, let's just say it will be International Women's Day, a day I look forward to every year as we can sort of check in and see what's happening with the patriarchy and with trying to kick it to the curb. And it's a nice check-in point every year to try to really look at pulling together solidarity of femmes, of women, of queer folk everywhere into making huge advances, please, in our human rights and telling our stories. Also super important in that effort. On Sunday the 10th, we'll have a new moon. New moon is a good time to sort of turn inward and ponder about your next steps. What's the next month of your life going to be focused on? What kind of actions do you need to engage in? What kind of actions or behaviors do you want to curtail and stop? All of these things. So moon cycles are there to support you energetically. I don't know if that's the reason they're there, but you can work with those moon cycles and those moon energies. And so next Sunday, the 10th, a week from Sunday, will be a new start to the moon cycle. It culminates in a full moon on the 25th. So there's that. And now for tarot. We have cards. They're fallen. So we have the Four of Swords. It's inversed. We have the Two of Pentacles. And we have Strength inversed. There we go. How do I do this? Why am I confused by our camera every week? Okay.
Because it's inversed.
Yeah, it is. And it messes with my ever so slight dyslexia. So there we go. what this means is uh, you might be feeling like you don't have the power to really face this world, right? You don't have the strength needed to plow ahead, that things sort of seem kind of disconnected. And I'm here to tell you, my friends, that you can, in fact, really feel that power. You have it within you. Do what you need to do to clear the way and actually feel that empowerment that is there. It is within you. You don't have to really look for ways that you're diminishing your own light. Look for ways that you may be withdrawing to the point of it not being a healthy thing. It's no longer resting. It's more like escapism, because in fact you are kind of thinking you might not have it, might not have what it takes to, well, be the change. And this is really a card about taking that action, about seeing things that need to be done and jumping in with some good analysis, keeping things balanced, but taking action, keeping things going. And this is, in fact, the card that was upright, right? So this is what we're being called to do. And it is, in fact, taking balanced action in the material world. It is moving forward with projects, keeping your eyes on what you have attained here in the little bag of treats. They are at this kitty's feet. They're not going anywhere. And he's moving forward. She's moving forward, trying to, in fact, accomplish more and more. So the way to do that is, of course, by feeling your personal empowerment, to rest when you need to rest when you need to accept the belly scratches of the universe, but to not withdraw and escape out of desperation or sadness. You are empowered. You can actually make tremendous differences in your life. And when we work together, we all can make tremendous differences for our community and in this world going forward. That's what the cards have.
Right on.
All right. Well, that's it for us, I think. Thank you ever so much for joining us this week, as always. And we are always excited to see you. If you are watching this later, please leave comments below. Let us know what you're thinking. Whenever you're watching this, feel free to comment. We love reading your comments. Please hit the like button for this video and share it around with your networks, with your friends, with your families. If it has meant something to you, please help others know that we are here. Also subscribe. Please hit the subscribe button. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for coming around.
And we'll check back with you next week. International Women's Day it is.
Our love goes out to you and to all the ships at sea.
Cheers.